Hello, welcome to this video, and I will show you how to create a tilt shift effect. What is a tilt shift effect? Is simply that miniature effect in a picture. You can play with the blur, really strong blur, to give it this miniature effect. But it's not just blurring the image, because for example, if I take this portrait here, we cannot see that she's a miniature, like we see that she's a normal sized girl, whereas here everything seems miniature. So there is several things to it. First of all, the composition in each images. For example, here you have the cars that are really small, here as well, here, there. Look at the size of the boat. So in the image itself, the objects appear small, like in an aerial view, and you have the top and the down of the image blurred. So this here, for example, is a great example, because I think it's made in Photoshop or something like this. I don't think it's made with a proper tilt shift lens, I'm not sure, but it gives us the impression that it's miniature, and it doesn't depend on the focal length, because we know that for in photography, if you want to create a really strong depth of field, a blurred depth of field, you would have to have a really long focal length, whereas in tilt shift you don't need this long depth of field, this long focal length, I'm sorry, to create the blur. For example, here you can see that the perspective is really deep, so it's not being shot with a long lens. I mean, not that long, not long for example like this one, or that one, for example. So how do we create that? In photography you have to use this kind of lens, which is really weird, but basically the base and the part here are dislocked. It looks like it's shifted, that's why it's called a tilt shift probably. And but in 3D it's quite simple. So like I said, either you have to use a post-process effect, but I will show you another technique. This is the scene that I have in Unreal, and I've placed a couple of things here. You will find this artwork on my ArtStation probably. I will put the link down in the description. And I want to have a camera like this, maybe not that far, maybe like that, so we can see a little bit of depth in the landscape, and we can still see the car and the girl here. Okay, so what you want to do first is to use the Cine Camera Actor. So I'll drag it here. I have a couple of other ones in the scene, so let me just pause that and go into this view, which is, I think, let me grab it. It's the Cine Camera Actor 3. So let's make it Cine Camera Actor tilt shift, so I recognize it. I go into my camera. Okay, well I think, yeah, I messed up because I lost my view, so let's do it again. Let's create a view like that. So first of all, I am in a view of 35 millimeters, which is not bad, but let's try it in 24 millimeters to show you that the tilt shift doesn't really depend on the focal length. I mean, does depend, but you can do a tilt shift effect without a huge focal length like you would do with the depth of field. So I will just focus the girl with the plane here, like that. And the thing you want to do is to lower the aperture. That's how you create depth of field in photography. But you have to combine the aperture and the focal length. For example, if I zoom in like with the 200 millimeters, you can see that I have a really nice depth of field. The car here is blurred and the girl here is quite sharp. You can see that everything there, it's in the depth. But how do I do if I have a focal length of 24 millimeters that I have, like I have here? Well, it's very simple. You can't do it in real life, but you can do it in Unreal. You have to lower the min f-stop to something really stupid like 0.001. You can even put 0 if you want, doesn't matter. And here you can lower this value so much that at some point you will have the tilt shift effect. And here it is, simple as that. Now I have my tilt shift. I just make sure that I'm in focus with the girl, alright, like this, and that's it. I have my tilt shift effect. So I have the blur here at the bottom, I have the blur here at the top, and I have the center that is very sharp. I can control it simply with the aperture. If you put it like something like this is also great, it's also acceptable, like 0.098 for the aperture. You can see that it's becoming a tilt shift, but you can go lower, and if I go too low I will have like this very short band here. So something else here that you see on the glass of the window, this is because I think in the material, and this is something that you might encounter in the glass material, you have to look for, I will go into the parent glass, and here if you type DOF you can see that it's checked render after depth of field. So if I uncheck that, it will render before the depth of field, so the depth of field can be applied on top of the translucent material. I believe that when you create a translucent material in Unreal, by default it will enable the render after depth of field. I believe it's for performance reasons, but I don't know why they did it exactly, because well, it's really noticeable when it's rendered after the depth of field that there is a problem. So usually if you really rely on depth of field in your game, you would want to deactivate this. So just the time for the shader to compile, and here we go. Here we have the thing. So here you can see that I have a really narrow tilt shift, like this area only is actually clear. And if you look at it closely, you can see that if you would do it in a post-process effect, you would have like a mask like, well, like that for example, and another like that, where here you will have a gradient going there from black to white, and here the same, a gradient from black to white, and you would blur everything here with a gradient. But what would happen is that the girl here that should be in focus would be blurred as well. The advantage to use an actual depth of field is that you don't have this problem, because the girl is in focus and will always stay in focus. It will simply get the contour of the girl here, and the background will be blurred, which is great. So yeah, that's it, that wraps this tutorial. So I hope it's very useful to you. I was searching for a good way to do this a long time ago, and I was trying a lot with the post process and all that stuff, and I just tried one time with the Cine camera actor and it just worked. So great technique. See you and enjoy.